Okay, races for today. A few things first we'll have a look at the comments. So if we go to comments, basically if you want to add some comments using the form guide analyzer, you can add other comments in here. So for example, we might say strong chance. So if you can type, it's not so easy. And then that will add it in there so you can use that. So let's have a look at today's races. Thursday 30th of May, the end of autumn, and winter, wonderful winter starts tomorrow. Again, we'll have to add in this Sportsbet Ballarat synthetic into the next update, so that ends up being VR for the code. These codes of course sometimes aren't available the night before, so you've just got to cancel those out. The race of interest today we're going to have a look at is race 2 at Bathurst. Again, if we have a look at the day summary, we have two meetings. Bathurst and Gosford have got the rail in the true position and good for Sportsbet synthetic, whatever you call it, rail true synthetic track, and Townsville's got barrier out and barrier has the rail out and a wet track. So again, Townsville, the track you'd have to be watching during the day. These other ones should race fairly reasonably. So here the race we're going to have a look at today is this second race from Bathurst. Again, the problem, small field. So whenever you bet in small fields, sometimes you can have one or two horses you're expecting to fire and they fail, and so then you'll get a result which quite often doesn't go your way. However, luck breaks both ways. From the top, Legislation has been racing in slightly weaker races, not doing much, so we'd have to be preferring him. Buffy is racing okay in slightly weaker races, so must be some chance here. Crim's been running in weaker races and has been leading, came from a wide barrier. Could be some chance, it probably looks more like a place chance. Pressbox. Now Pressbox is the one we're interested in laying here. Okay, it's going from winning a Class 2 at Parkes, which Parkes is not exactly the strongest racetrack in Australia. On the other hand, Bathurst is not exactly the strongest racetrack either. So it's going from one weakish track to another weakish track. So anyway, it won a Class 2, and if we look at the class figure, that was a 56 rater, and today this is a 65. So in other words, it's up in class. And it's got 54 kilos last start, and now it's got 58. Now it has got a change of rider, so depends on whether you could argue Billy Cray to Matthew Cale, whether that's worth 4 kilos or not. We're not going to consider that at this time. The other thing is it's going from 1200 metres to 1400 metres. So in other words, it's up in distance. It is a leader. Now it didn't lead the previous run, so you could say, well, it might take a sit. Okay, but it looks like if this is going to win this race, it's going to have to race on the pace, I would think. Barrier 2 means it's pretty much going to have to boot up. So anyway, this one's way up in class in theory. Again, it's not a strong race. So the horses that are higher rated than this one really aren't in form, whereas this horse is showing good form. Let's keep going. So anyway, it has to be some chance. Mr. Tyndall has been running in a weaker race, racing okay with big weight. It's down at the weights. 1400 is maybe okay. 2 runs at the distance for nothing. So Greg Ryan at Bathurst is a very good rider out around these tracks, so you'd have to say it would be some chance. Sonic Girls come back from this Guri Cup at Mudgee. Ran at Bathurst prior to that in a stronger race, and it's down in weight, so you'd have to say this would be some chance. Problem is the Z saying it gets back, so it was last in a field of 7 over 1600, so back to 1400. it's got a wide barrier. It's hard to see it's going to be on the pace. So in the small field, it's hard to see it running on. But you'd have to say it would be some chance. Fanny Girl won over 1570. Cessnock in a much weaker race and then ran pretty much last the whole way at Muswellbrook. Seems unlikely. And so that's it. We've gone around the field. Now the beauty about doing the small fields is it doesn't take long to go through the analysis. On the other hand, they quite often depend on pace. And as I say, Pressbox looks almost certain to jump to the front. And it's really a matter of if you can dictate the speed from there, he may well be able to hold on and win. So in other words, it's not what you would call a fabulous lay bet. At even money, if you can get even money on Betfair, then it is certainly a pretty good lay. Having had a look at Buffy's last start on the video, it ended up missing the start. So again, if it misses the start again, I think it's good night to Buffy. But if not, Buffy will probably beat Pressbox. So again, the same thing. If we're relying on one horse to beat the favourite, that's when it is a real risk. Okay, so if we have a look at the sectional analysis for the race, so we have a look at the sectional times, converted into ratings, which can prove to be quite useful. We've got Buffy with a rating of 56, which is pretty good. Mr. Tyndall of 51. Legislation, unfortunately, Pressbox, you got a 0 and a 0. There's no sectional times. Generally, horses coming from racetracks with no sectional times are beaten by horses running at tracks where they do have sectional times. However, that is only a general rule and it doesn't apply race to race. But if you want to be backing this sort of Pressbox type horse, in the long run, you're going to lose because they don't perform as well. Now this Pressbox might be one out of the box, and yeah, he may be able to win this race. In fact, is it a he? No, it's a 3-year-old filly. Alright, so it's a 3-year-old filly taking on some of these more seasoned horses, but basically 1, 2, 3, 4 mares. This is of course the useful information down the bottom that you can look at. 7 starters, first up, none of them first up today. The pot rating 3.0, that means you've had either 3 last start place getters or whatever. So here we've got a fourth, a second, a winner, a fourth. So you add that up, half a point for a fourth and 1 point for a place. So that gives you a pot rating of 3. The weight range is 5 kilos. That's not really important. But 2 male and 5 female horses. So generally, as we said, the male horses will beat the female horses. So we've got Legislation and Mr. Tyndall. Out of those, Mr. Tyndall is the one that we've fancied. So in theory, he's the one to bet on. But again, that's only in theory. He's in fact getting half a kilo from the 3-year-old filly. So, you know, on weights and measures, he should be some chance. But again, Pressbox is racing very well. So anyway, that's the video for today. There's many other races that you could look at in terms of laying horses, and they're all kind of the same. You know, there's a whole lot of ifs, buts and maybes. The best sort of race to look for when laying horses is when you think the horse has got no real chance of winning. Pressbox in this case definitely has a good chance of winning this race. However, going down to the wire, I'm pretty sure he'll get beaten. However, we'll see what happens. So that's the end for today. We'll see what happens later on.